it hung there. You could just back the fork truck up directly, straight up, and then whenever you're ready to realign it, you could just drive it right back to the tank.
Okay. Just to direct your attention to the cut here, and I know that, well, first of all, let me look at the full picture. Can you tell from this picture what was used to cut the end of the tank off here?
I can.
How?
Based on a couple things. One, there is a red and green oxy-fuel hose laying in the background that runs up over top of the undercarriage of the tank that would be used for an oxy-fuel torch. And then the burn marks essentially made from the cut caused by the flame of the oxy-fuel torch.
Okay. And is this typical when you use a torch in terms of the pattern of the cut?
It depends on how skilled the individual is who's utilizing the torch and how much experience they have in doing a cylindrical item. Cylindrical items are quite a bit different than what we say flat items are. So if they were highly skilled, it could be straighter. If they were less skilled, it could be even more crooked.
Okay. What other equipment would you need besides the welder and a way to support the bottom and to hold it from the top? Besides those things, what else would you need to do a welding job on the end cap?
Just welding the end cap?
Correct.
Obviously, you would need probably some PPE or personal protective equipment, which would include a welding helmet and gloves, that sort of thing. You would not be able to, a welding helmet essentially would be a must. You would not be able to see what you're doing without it.
Okay. So if you tried to weld without a welding mask, what would happen?
Essentially, you'd be trying to do it with your eyes closed. If you left your eyes open, the light would be extremely bright and probably hurt your eyes. You could also receive UV burns to your eyes because of it. So you would be trying to do it with your eyes closed and essentially doing it blind. You would most likely run way off course in a very short period of time.
Okay. So even given the inconsistencies in that weld, can you tell if that was done by somebody who was doing it blind, for lack of a better term?
It definitely was not somebody who had their eyes closed.
Right. So that person had a welding mask.
Correct.
Okay. What else besides a welding mask would you use?
Gloves to protect your hands. Yeah, as long as you had the welder and the equipment to put it back together, to align it, and then the PPE, you would be able to make that weld.
Okay. Would you use anything on your arms?
Potentially, that would fall under the PPE as well. Covering your arms. I mean, if this was done inside we'll say a welding facility, whoever would be doing it would be wearing a welding jacket or welding sleeves that would cover the arms, probably a welding cap to cover their head, a welding mask, and then probably heavy-duty welding gloves.
If you did this without something on your arms, what would you expect to see?
If your skin was exposed to it?
Correct.
You could expect to see essentially some burn marks. Depends on if you had sparks landing directly on your arm. But you would also see evidence of ultraviolet light burns, essentially. So potentially, depending on how long the duration was, the UV light that's produced in the welding arc is extremely intense, and it can burn uncovered skin relatively quickly.
Okay. Showing you people's 74. You have an opinion on this?
That is very indicative of what a burn from UV light produced by the welding arc would look like, especially if one was wearing a glove on the hand.
Thank you. You said a relatively short period of time. What would be the shortest you would think a person could be welding and get the results in that picture?
There's a few facets to answer that question. One is going to be the amount of voltage and amperage that's being produced in the weld. Machines are variable, so the thicker material that you're welding, or the higher the output you set the machine up for, the more UV light is going to be produced while you're welding. The more UV light that is produced is going to have a greater effect faster on the skin. Based on, would you like me to base it on essentially the weld size?
Yes.
Okay. So based on the repair weld size that we've seen, knowing that it was a higher amperage welding machine, I would say you could do that in a half hour or so. It also depends on the individual's how often they've been exposed to something like that. I guess a good example would be same thing from like a sunburn. If you go outside early on in the year and you have a very hot sunny day and you're out there for a half an hour, you might burn rather quickly. Whereas maybe towards the end of the summer, same conditions, and you're used to being out in the sun, it would not burn as quickly.
Okay. You noticed that the paint was, excuse me, the tank in the tank 34 was painted white. Does that have any bearing on how quickly you could get the UV burn?
It would, because of the paint was gloss. So a gloss paint, essentially anything gloss reflects more, and UV light is no different than any other light, just like visible light that we see that gives things colors. It can be reflected off of shiny surfaces, and that would essentially intensify the UV light on the opposite side of the reflection.
Okay. All right, now I'll turn to how fast could somebody weld? Can you give us a figure in like inches per minute or something like that?
So to produce, in reference to the repair weld, to produce a weld of that size, anywhere from 6 to 10 inches per minute.
Okay. Did you measure the circumference of the tank?
I did.
What was it?
128 inches.
Okay, so all the way around 128 inches.
Correct.
And so is there any other factor in determining how quickly somebody could weld that back together other than the speed that they can weld?
There's a couple.
Okay, what are they?
One would be starts and stops. As you reposition yourself, even because of the size of the circumference at 128 inches, it's relatively large diameter. Nobody could weld from start to finish all in one go. So you would have to reposition yourself often to create that one weld. That's going to take a little bit of time factored in. Also, the limitations of the equipment itself. Welding equipment has, every piece of welding equipment is rated by a duty cycle. And duty cycle for a welding machine is a period out of 10 minutes that you can actually, that the machine is rated to have an arc on time.
Okay. And so give us a typical duty cycle.
60%.
Okay. And so if a welder has a 60% duty cycle, out of every 10 minutes, how many minutes can it spend welding?
It can weld for 6 minutes out of 10.
Okay. All right. And showing you people's 295. Is that the same type of machine that you identified earlier?
It is.
Okay. And I'm going to zoom in here, but can you tell what the duty cycle of this machine is?
It says 60%,
And the amperage for this machine?
200 amps.
So you said you could do 6 to 10 inches per minute. Slow would be 6, fast would be 10. And you could weld 6 out of 10 minutes, 6 minutes out of every 10 minutes, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so what would be the quickest, given those variables, that someone could weld that entire 128 inches?
Can I refer to
Did you do
my
some notes?
I did. I brought some notes and I did some calculations.
Okay, if that would refresh your memory, yes, please.
Okay, so at 10 inches per minute, the quickest you could weld that 128 inches with a 60% duty cycle would essentially be 21.3 minutes of arc-on time.
Okay, so that's with the pauses, because you could only weld 6 out of 10 minutes, still 21 minutes you could do it?
Yes, that doesn't take into consideration necessarily starts and stops, depending on how much time is spent in between. That is strictly with duty cycle, and then your starts and stops could count for some of that duty cycle loss as well.
Okay, and if you were on the slower side, the 6 inches per minute side, what would be the time for that person?
On the 6 inches per minute, 35.5 minutes of arc-on time.
And the same caveat, plus starts and stops?
Yeah, so plus starts and stops, and I same thing goes for that. And we had 11 starts and stops that I had identified in the tank, and that can vary from a few seconds. If it is just a position or a reposition, obviously that would be a relatively short period of time. And to calculate what it would take for actual weld time, we would just add additional time beyond the 60% duty cycle for that.
So with, you got 11 starts and stops. We don't know how long exactly it took the welder in this instance to reposition themselves, correct?
Correct.
But taking that out of the equation, you could do it in as little as 21 minutes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the slower welder, 35 minutes.
Correct.
Do you have an idea of how long it would have taken to cut the end off with the abrasive wheel?
I do.
And how do you know that?
So I did some experiments with the same type of equipment to gather inches per minute on the relatively same thickness of material to come up with basically a formula to calculate exactly how long it would take to cut 128 inches of the same thickness of material with the same type of equipment, abrasive wheel.
Okay, and what did you come up with?
2.5 inches per minute.
Okay, and so then to cut 128 inches at 2.5 inches per minute, how long does that take?
That's approximately 50 minutes.
50?
50.
Is there any reason that would have to be done all at once, or could you break that up?
No, you could break it up, and not knowing what the restraints are, but given if it was being done, it probably would be. It would be broke up because you would not start from.
Projection speculation.
I think he's the expert and he's in the position to indicate.
Mr. Steen, then.
After cutting it off, welding it back on, how quickly could you repaint it? How long does it take to cool down?
Because there's a lot of thermal mass in this tank, or a lot of mass in general, it would be able to cool off rather quickly. And because it's so big, 128 inches of weld, by the time you got back to the side that you started with, it would be completely cool, essentially. So you could start on that side right after you were finished.
Other than the approximately 50 minutes to do the complete cut and between 21 minutes and 35 minutes to weld it back on, is there any significant amount of time that we haven't accounted for in the process of cutting it off, welding it back on, grinding the spots down, etc.?
No significant amount of time, but there are other things obviously that would be in there.
Like what?
The time it takes to essentially remove the cap to provide access to the tank, and then to put the cap back to the tank and align it.
Let's stop right there. So you're talking about if a forklift had been used, you've already described just backing up and then going forward.
Correct.
How much time would you expect that to take?
It would not take much. To remove the cap is simply backing up on the fork truck, relatively under 30 seconds to back that up, and then to reposition it forward, depending on how much skill the operator had that was operating the fork truck. It could be the same, especially if there was guides at the bottom to help cradle the bottom of the dome to the tank.
Okay. All right. What other factors we have?
As far as welding it back together,
Well, you indicated that there were some high spots that had been ground down.
yeah. So there was some discontinuities within the weld. For a better terminology, drips that would stick out, high profile spots in the face of the weld bead that were ground back down to create uniformity with the weld. Small spots, I would say 5 minutes of grinding would be enough to do all that was done.
Okay. All right. So at some point, you said at the very beginning that the fourth time you looked at the tank, you were comparing a photo that you were provided with the physical tank itself. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And can you tell us what was the photo on that you were looking at?
It was a body cam photo of a tank sitting on the ground.
Okay. All right. This is People's 79. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Okay. Now, when you had initially met with the Michigan State Police, did they show you a photo?
Not initially, but when I came back in for a follow-up interview, I was shown a photo.
Okay. And did you match, or did you attempt to match that photo to the tank at that time?
I did.
Okay. Did you actually go up to the tank itself and look?
No.
Okay. Why not?
It was in the prosecutor's office, so we did not have physical access to the tank at that time.
Okay. But later on you did?
We did, yes.
Okay. And so you took this photo and you compared it to the physical tank?
Correct.
And what did you find?
That it did match up rather well. There are several.
Objection to the use of the term match. I think that goes far afield of his abilities. I also think it's improper if he wants to talk about similarities and dissimilarities, consistent inconsistencies. But to say it's a match is unfairly prejudicial.
I'm fine with that, Your Honor. Could you explain consistencies or inconsistencies?
Yeah, I viewed spots within the repair weld on the tank that was consistent with spots in the photograph.
Okay. And are you able to identify any of those with this?
Yes. And can you zoom in a little bit
Sure.
further? So a couple of the items that was identified was the two anomalies about, we'll say, 10 to 12 inches up from the bottom of the tank along the seam of the repair weld.
Okay, are we talking about this area in here?
Correct.
Okay.
And then the offset at the top of the tank where the dome is attached.
And when you were physically present with the tank, what did you see?
I saw consistencies that were with this photo.
Were you able to, when you looked at this, did something stand out to you in terms of the paint?
I noticed that the paint was very flat
What part?
around the weld area.
Could this be done by one person, or would it take more than one person to do this job, cutting the tank end off and welding it back together?
Objection, speculation.
If you know.
I would overrule if he knows, I think he can answer.
This job could be done with one person if they had the proper tools and equipment.
Okay, and the tools that we've talked about today.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Nothing further.
Okay, Ms. Shardy, if you want to take a recess before we begin, it's about 3 o'clock, so we're kind of in that neighborhood.
That might be a good idea because I think this is a natural breaking point. I believe this is the last witness for the day.
Okay, why don't we do that? Then we'll take a 5 to 10 minute recess. You can step.
May be seated.
If we could have our witness come back to the stand, please. And we're ready for you. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Schmidt, my name is Mary Chartier. I represent Mr. Some questions for you this afternoon. So you indicated that you were contacted by the Michigan State Police on August 27th, 2024. Is that accurate?
Yes.
How did they reach out to you? How did they learn about you? Do you know that?
I do not know directly how they did, but they
Do you know who made contact by phone?
Detective Brewer.
Did you ever ask, how did you learn about me?
I believe I might have. I don't recall for sure though.
Anyone involved with the case?
I do not.
Had you worked with them, Michigan State Police or anyone in the past?
No.
Now you then went, did you go that day to look at the exterior of the tank?
I would have to look at my report for exact dates, but I believe it was scheduled for a couple days later.
Sure, so why don't you take a look if that would help refresh your memory. I believe it's on the second page.
The inspection was bugs.
So you took the measurements that we saw
Correct.
and you took photographs
Correct.
and you inspected everything that you wanted to inspect that day as it relates to the exterior.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what was the tank made of?
As far as
Sure. So is it plastic, steel?
it's steel composed of.
And what steel you said mostly?
Composed of.
Oh, steel composed of. And then at that point in time, and even up until today, what was your experience cutting open and welding a steel tank like that?
I have had experience cutting, specifically cutting anhydrous tanks open before. It's not uncommon for them to be used, as odd as it sounds, as fire rings when they're decommissioned.
So what's a fire ring? Now I'm intrigued by that.
So, given that the large diameter of the tank itself, 41 inches in this case, slivers of the tank are often cut and used as a ring to build a campfire in.
Oh, so people put a campfire in the middle of the metal?
Yep.
And so you do that? You help cut the tank so they can do that?
I have done that before, yes.
How many times?
About 3.
And when you cut the tank open, did it have any liquid in it?
No, ma'am.
And what did you use to cut the tanks open?
I used an oxyacetylene torch.
A what torch?
Oxyacetylene torch.
Okay, so you called it an abrasive wheel or a grinder. You didn't use that?
I did not.
Have you ever used that to cut open a steel tank?
Not an anhydrous tank, but yes, a steel tank I have.
And let's say the tank that we saw, tank 34, let's say you were going to cut that with the grinder. Should I call it a grinder or an abrasive wheel, or what would you prefer?
Either is fine.
Okay, well, we'll call it a grinder. How many wheels would it take? So the grinder has a wheel on it, correct?
That's correct.
How many wheels would it take to cut that?
It depends on the diameter, or excuse me, on the thickness of the wheel. The thinner the wheel, the faster it would use up. Also, the diameter of the wheel. You can get wheels in various diameters. Same thing. The greater the diameter, the longer it would last.
So can you give us an estimate? It might take 4 to 8, or can you tell us?
I would say, given that circumference, probably 6 to 8 wheels.
6 to 8 wheels. And then how loud would it be? It sounds like you've done this before, although you haven't used a grinder. But with a grinder, how loud would that be?
It would be loud. You have the noise from the grinder itself, and then obviously you have a hollow tank that would echo the sounds.
So when you say loud, people have said I have a loud voice, right? So is it loud like that, or is it, wow, loud? People like my neighbor would hear.
It would be above 85 decibels, which is at the point that they recommend hearing protection.
Okay, so above 85 decibels.
Correct.
And so you've cut open those tanks before to help make the fire rings. What about welding them shut? Have you ever welded a tank like that shut before?
I have not.
Did you do any sort of experiment in this case? So when you were hired, did you say, I wonder how long it would take, or anything like that?
So whenever I started calculating what it would take to actually time for the weld to be produced, I did do some experiments, because basically the type of weld that we see as the repair weld is not what we would consider a common weld for that type of joint, meaning there was no concern for penetration, right? It was just to put the cap back on. So thickness wasn't necessarily a priority. If we used any type of calculator, there are some online weld calculators, and then there are some formulas. It's going to give in the actual thickness of the weld. So to get a more accurate measurement, I did do some physical experiments where I welded very similar to that.
And so did you take that into account when you were coming up with the calculation of how long it would take, how long it took you?
I did.
And then your experience level is how many years? 20 plus, I think?
It is.
Okay. Did you have a student do it to see maybe how they would do it?
No, I had no students involved.
Now, would a weld like that, or the grinding, so either the cutting or the welding, does that cause sparks?
It does.
What does? The cutting or the welding?
Both.
Both. Okay, and do the sparks fly places, or do they just go right to the floor? So or are they all over?
For the grinder, it depends on if there is a guard on the grinder. The guard will direct the sparks in a general way. Usually they're rotatable so that the sparks do not hit the operator, or you can send them in a direction that you would like for them to go. For the welding, they're going to propagate out from the center of the weld and go all directions.
Go all directions, including, for example, on clothing?
It's possible. It depends how far the operator is away from where the welding is happening, but yes.
What about on the floor?
Yes.
Does it cause anything? So, for example, if they got on my clothes, might they burn them, the sparks?
It's possible.
What about on the floor?
Depends on the floor surface. So if it's like a painted floor surface, you could see remnants of that. If it's concrete, you probably wouldn't notice anything. You would have essentially, it would look like dust. Essentially, the sparks are actually molten metal that is molten in air, which is why they look orange. And then whenever they cool, they just look like dust.
Do they look like a color? So, for instance, does it look like black soot or gray dust, or what does it look like?
Usually darker in color.
Darker color.
Yep.
Now you went on, you said August 29th, 2024. Oh, do you know how heavy that tank is?
I do not know exactly how heavy the tank is.
And you don't know how heavy the piece was that was cut off, correct?
I do not know exactly, no.
Did I already ask you, do you know how thick this steel was?
You did not, but I do. I took measurements of that.
Terrific. Would you tell us?
The measurement I took was 0.223 inches.
0.223. So 0.223 inches.
Correct.
Now, you said you had experience cutting open an anhydrous ammonia tank. Did you take any precaution? Well, let me ask you this. When you were cutting it for the fire, was there any chemicals or anything in the tank, or had it been cleaned out?
No, it had been decommissioned for quite some time.
If you were cutting into an anhydrous ammonia tank, would you take any precautions?
If it had anhydrous in it, I guess it would depend on what my knowledge of the tank was, how long since it had been used, how full it was, how much anhydrous was in it, that sort of thing.
What precautions would you take?
Well, obviously, if it was full, I probably wouldn't do it.
I don't think anyone would. But suppose it had some anhydrous in it.
I would first probably vent the tank to make sure that there is no buildup of fumes inside. Possibly, depending on how quickly it needed to be done, but to be safe, I would probably purge the tank. That could be done with air or inert gas or even water.
I'm going to stop you right there. You said vent the tank. How would you do that?
Providing a hole. So in the case of an anhydrous tank, I would probably take the valves out and provide an airway.
And does that go out into the air? So you want to like dissipate that, what's inside?
Mainly so that it's not a contained vessel.
So it's not a contained vessel. So it's not, for example, like in a garage or something like that. You
No,
want
so
to
that
do it outside.
Meaning that it's not contained, meaning it's not pressurized.
Not pressurized.
Correct.
How long would it take to vent it?
Relatively quickly.
What's relatively quickly?
If there was pressure inside, it would leak out immediately. If you were trying to vent odor or something like that, it would take quite a while longer. I don't know that you'd ever get the smell completely out of it.
So when people say things like quite a while longer, I always like to try to get some idea because it means something different to everybody. So what does that mean to you?
A long time. And being the fact that I don't have exact experience in venting a tank to where it does not have any odor anymore, I couldn't give you an exact time.
So when you say a long time, are you talking like days, weeks, months?
I can say that the tank in this case, even after it was open, still had an ammonia odor in it whenever I entered it. And that was quite a while.
And so was it a strong odor?
Yes, it was fairly strong.
Now, you said you were telling us other things that you would do, and then I stopped you so I could understand the venting. So what was something else that you had said?
Potentially purging it. And you could purge it with air, or you could purge it with an inert gas, or even, some people that repair tanks will purge with water so that there's no vapor inside.
And then anything else, any other precautions you would take?
Obviously have a face shield. As a precaution, I would make sure I have my PPE on, probably to make sure that there is a fire extinguisher nearby, especially if I was doing it by myself in case something did catch fire.
Why did you say fire extinguisher? What would be the concern about something catching fire?
Well, you're creating sparks, right? Whether you're cutting or welding, those sparks can land in certain things, and if you're unknowing, it could essentially set something on fire, and you would want to put that out.
Would you have a concern about the chemical itself with the sparks?
I don't know for sure whether anhydrous ammonia is flammable. I do not believe it is, but I do not know that for sure, so I can't say.
Anything else that you would do?
Obviously, arrange equipment, make sure I had everything I needed to be able to do it. But for precaution wise, probably not.
And then do you have any experience painting an anhydrous ammonia tank?
I do not.
So you don't know how long it would take the paint to dry, anything like that?
I do not.
Now, we talked about the August 29th, 2024 look that you did of the tank. You said that there were contaminants, and I reviewed your analysis, contaminants combined with the weld material during the welding process. Do you know, and that's on page 3 if you need it, do you know what those contaminants were?
I do not specifically. I can make an assumption give you my opinion on what they were.
So we don't want any assumptions in a courtroom. So if you don't know the contaminants, that's fine.
Yep.
Thank you. And so you don't know again where they came from.
Correct.
Thank you. Then you ultimately met with Detective Druyer and Detective Singleton in September. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And tell us about that. What did you do at that meeting?
I had an interview with them, and they wanted to show me a photo of the tank. Asked me if I could identify the tank, or I should say a photo of a tank, and asked me if I could identify the tank in the photo.
And is that at that trip before you met with them, is that when you viewed the interior of the tank?
Yes.
Okay, so you had viewed the interior of the tank in September, then you met with Detective Druyer and Detective Singleton, and they wanted to show you a photograph and then see if that was consistent with the tank that you had viewed. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And the photograph that they showed you was actually an enhanced photo, correct?
I'm not sure if it was or not. I know it was a photo that was on a device. It was from a body cam. I don't know if it was essentially a still photo or if it was a stop in the footage itself.
Do you remember them telling you that it was an enhanced photograph?
I don't remember them saying that, but it's possible that they did.
Would listening to your interview help refresh your memory?
It would.
Thank you. Ms. Saylor, would you go to GEE 03 at about 58 seconds? Did that help refresh your memory?
I did.
And it was an enhanced photograph, correct?
So they commented that they had enhanced it as much as they could.
Correct. And you have no reason to believe that they were lying to you and they said it was an enhanced photograph, right?
No.
And at that point, you looked at the photos taken by law enforcement, including the enhanced one, the body camera, your photos, and the actual tank, correct?
At that point, yes.
At that point, and you didn't issue any kind of an opinion that you thought that this was consistent, correct?
I believe my opinion during the interview that
Yes.
was referring to. Yeah, my opinion was that from what I had in front of me, I couldn't make a determination.
You could not make a determination. And that would have been, again, September 24th, 2024, correct?
That's correct.
Then you went back and viewed the tank a third time. Was that January 5th, 2026?
It was.
Why did you go back and view it a third time?
At that point in time, there was a question of if there was any other weld marks that might have been missed on the tank. I wanted to take a look to see possibly how the end cap might have been supported, if there was any marks, that sort of thing.
And so did you miss a weld mark when you had viewed the tank the prior two times?
I wouldn't say I missed a weld mark, but there was a weld mark outside of the repair weld that was on the tank.
And had you noted that there was this other weld mark on the tank?
I had not.
Now, when you went out in January, did anyone tell you what to look for? So give you any guidance?
As far as the weld mark
Yes.
that was noted, no.
Did anyone show you any still photographs, any body camera images, anything like that?
So while there, I'm trying to, I can my report.
Sure.
I'm trying to remember if that was the instance or if it was at a later date. But there was a time there with the tank that I was showed a still photo again of that same body cam footage while I was there with the tank.
So was that that?
That's what I'm trying to.
Okay, sure.
confirm
Go
for you.
take a look.
That was not at that time.
Okay, when was that time?
That would have been the, I believe the fourth time that I went out to look at the tank.
Was that in February?
I believe it was.
February of this year?
Correct.
February 2026?
Yes.
I'm going to get to that in a minute. Before we get to that final view of the tank, and that was the final view of the tank for you,
Yes.
you had talked about the welding machine that was in a photograph, the Miller.
Yes.
Do you know how many of those machines are sold?
I do not know exactly how many of those machines are sold.
Was that a surprise to you to see a welding machine like that, something you'd never seen of before?
No.
It's a fairly common welding machine?
Yes.
When you were preparing your analysis and then for this case, did anyone show you a comparison of welds and ask you, okay, can you tell if the same person did this weld and this weld?
No, but I believe I was asked if you could tell if a specific person did a weld early on.
And what was your response to that?
No.
So it's not, you didn't do a weld lineup to see if you could match?
No.
Now, when you were talking with Mr. McCready and testifying, you were talking about the pallets and the cradle and things like that. You'd agree with me, that's all speculation on your part, correct?
I wouldn't say if it's, I would say that's my opinion on how that would be done and how I would do it.
Sure, how you would do it, right? But you don't know that's how it was done, correct?
I do not know that's how it was done.
And so, for instance, when you were talking about a chain, you don't have a chain that you can say, this is the chain that was supposedly welded to the tank, correct?
No.
And you don't have a forklift or a pallet where you're like, okay, that was used as the cradle, right?
No.
Did anyone talk to you about or say, could you use a chain? Something like that?
I believe I was asked how I would do it and specified that that's how I would do it.
Now, getting to the the February meeting. So you had viewed the tank in August of 2024. You had then viewed the tank again in January of 2026. In between that, you saw the tank in September of 2024, and that's when you were shown the enhanced photographs, correct?
Correct.
And so at no point, again, did you reach some sort of an opinion that there was this similarity between the two tanks that we're hearing about today, right?
No.
That came about at a meeting on February 9th, 2026, right?
Correct.
Who was in that meeting?
When I went to examine the tank,
Sure.
I believe both Mr. McCready and Detective Brewer were there.
So Mr. McCready and Detective Drew were there. Are you aware the trial had actually started at that point in time?
No, ma'am.
And only on February 9th, 2026, where did you then claim that now you could say there were consistencies between the two, to the point that you were going to be testifying to that in court, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
So you were asked a series of questions about precautions that you would take if you were going to cut open an anhydrous tank I think you may have had, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, or 6. My question is, could a person do that, cut open the anhydrous tank without taking those precautions?
Yes.
Could a person have cut open this particular anhydrous tank without using an abrasive wheel?
Yes.
What about the shards and all that? I mean, I'm not saying
so-
in general, I'm saying this particular tank.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt on how this particular tank was, the dome was removed off of the tank.
Okay.
It was with an abrasive wheel.
But we don't know whether the person used precautions when it came to the anhydrous that may or may not have been in there.
No.
Okay, but they could have done it without any precautions whatsoever in that regard.
Objection, asked and answered, and speculation.
I do agree that it's been asked and answered.
Thank you. Yes, I agree too. The last thing is, I may have misheard, but I think Ms. Chartier asked you something about being hired. Have you been hired in this case at all?
No, I have not.
Have you received any money at all?
No.
Okay, and you spent how many hours, do you think? Doing evaluations and writing your reports?
Probably upwards of 30.
Thank you. When we met, or when you met with Detective Dreyer and Singleton, did any of us ever tell you what to say?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have nothing further, thank you.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't need to, I'm sorry. I think I'd like to keep Mr. Schmidt under subpoena just in case tomorrow there are questions.
Okay.
But tomorrow there are questions by who?
Well, that's what I want you to. Not that he would come with us tomorrow. She would ask questions based on the tank. Okay, yeah, I think we're going to reserve the recall at this point.
So, Mr. Schmidt, you are still under your subpoena, which means you're still subject to the sequestration order. So please be mindful of that and continue to make yourself available for testimony if that's necessary. Okay, so for now, you are free. All right, and to my understanding, that is our last witness for today. Is that accurate?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be releasing you shortly. Tomorrow will be a little bit different than normal. We are going to be doing a view of some premises and some other things. It's also a Wednesday, so I have my Wednesday morning docket that will go until 10:30. So we'll try to start it at 10:30, but we won't be doing anything in the courtroom. We get to go on a field trip. So I do have an instruction to read to you regarding that. We will be letting you see the anhydrous ammonia tank where Ms. Warner was discovered, the Warner's Munger Road home and property, and the Paragon Road property, only to help you understand the evidence that has been and is presented in court. You must not consider anything you learn from seeing the tank and properties that was not covered by the evidence admitted in the trial. We will be conducting these site visits tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Please arrive at your normal meeting spot around 10 a.m. We will provide transportation to the premises and returning to the judicial building, and we will also provide you with a lunch. The properties are likely to be muddy, and it's my understanding you may get some snow tonight, so you may want to wear boots and casual clothing and dress for the weather. We will not be spending any time in the courtroom tomorrow. Neither myself nor the attorneys are permitted to speak with you while you are outside the courtroom, as there will not be any court recorder with us. There will be a Michigan State Trooper leading you through the property, but he cannot answer any questions. You will be permitted to bring your notepads and maps. You may not discuss the case with your fellow jurors or anyone else during the site visit. You may not take any photographs or videos with your personal devices. If you have any questions about the logistics of the premises visit, if you know them now, you can write them down now and pass them to the bailiff. Other than that, during the trial, please do not read, listen to, or watch any news reports about the case. Under the law, the evidence that you consider to decide the case must meet certain standards. For example, witnesses must swear to tell the truth, and the attorneys must have the ability to cross-examine them. Because news reports do not have to meet these standards, they could give you incorrect or misleading information that could unfairly favor one side. So to be fair to both parties, both sides, you must follow this instruction. Okay, we will see you tomorrow morning.